Good morning, everyone. Good morning. It's 10 a.m. in the Eastern Time Zone on the third Saturday of the month. But today we have a different schedule for November 2024. We're meeting today, November 23rd, and I have a pretty exciting meeting lined up today. Thanks to all of the volunteers who work to help coordinate our guests and to coordinate the promotion of what we're doing today. We're doing a little bit different. It's great to be able to have the prepared speeches, and it's great to be able to have impromptu speaking off the cuff, I like to say. So we'll have a little bit of that. But today we have a guest with us, and I'm going to turn the meeting over to our Toastmaster of the day. And our Toastmaster will introduce the guest and get us kicked off with how the format of the meeting is going to run. I do notice we have a guest today named Julie. And Julie, you can come on camera, you can speak up or not. You may choose to participate in any way you choose. You may want to observe us for the first time, or you may speak up when that part is appropriate. But welcome to the meeting, Julie. All right. So I'd like to turn the meeting over to our Toastmaster of the day, which is the distinguished Janet Castellan.
Great. Thank you, everyone. I have a little bit of a cold today. I'll try to talk loud enough so people can hear me. But I'm pleased that we have a friend of mine, P.Neihoff, that will be presenting a haiku workshop. And let's see, I got interested in haiku. I remember as a Sunday school teacher, one of my books said that to try to have the children write haikus. And haiku, I like haikus because they're easy enough for school children to write if they care to. And also, I did attend the Northern American Haiku Conference when it was in Cincinnati in 2023. And that's where I met Patty and her husband. And Patty is also a haiku leader, teacher at the Mercantile Library in downtown Cincinnati. There's workshops that are held the first Thursdays of every month at noon, and they're free. So if anyone has an interest, you can go in person. They provide a lunch if you register ahead of time, or you could do it on Zoom, and it's an hour long. Well, today we don't have any members giving a speech. When members give a speech, we usually have an evaluator, but we're going to forego the evaluations today. And we do have a timer for the meeting. And our timer is Elizabeth Irwin. Elizabeth, can you explain the timing?
Yes, I'll show the green background. Right now it's blue. When you get to the minimum time, and yellow in between, and then red when you get to the end, but you still have a little bit of time to continue, a half a minute. And the haiku is 10 to 12 minutes, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll be showing the backgrounds at 10, 11, and 12, and the table topics at 1, 1.5, and 2.
All right, thank you. And we also have someone who is our grammarian word of the day person, and that is David Ash. David Ash, do you have a word of the day for us?
Yes, I do. I'm a Toastmaster. I'm going to try to share my screen here to see if I can uh, bring up the word of the day. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Okay, so the word of the day, this is actually a Japanese word, and I believe, if I have it, the correct pronunciation, I believe it is shigure, shigure, and
Yes.
this word means rain in late autumn or early winter. And I know that such rains can be a little bit chilly and cold, but when I was thinking of the word of the day, it was pretty rainy and chilly here in California, so it kind of does fit as the word of the day. And it is a reminder a little bit of the season. It is a Japanese word, so that's going to be the word of the day. I'm going to be mainly focused today on table topics because Patty, you are our guest, so I'm not going to focus very much on evaluating your speech. When we get to table topics, I will be when we give impromptu speeches, I will be noticing ahs and ums. I'm going to be the ah and counter today. And if everyone does want to throw in this word of the day, that would be great. And that will be another opportunity to use the word of the day. So that's going to be my role. As I say, it's going to be mainly focused on table topics today. Thank you. And back to you, Madam Toastmaster.
Okay, thank you, David. And we've had some shigure here in the Cincinnati area mixed with snow. And let's see, we'll have table topics later on in the meeting, and everyone is welcome to participate. That Bobby Joy, will you explain what table topics are to our guests? Let's see, Joy. Okay. Well, anyway, table topics are when the table topic master asks a question off the cuff that the speaker doesn't know about, and you have 1 to 2 minutes to give your response. And the goal is to speak for 1 minute if you can. And that's when the green light comes on. And guests are welcome to join in table topics if they want to. Okay.
We have another guest that's joined, Janet. I'm
Oh.
sorry, I was on mute a second ago. So welcome to Deborah Martin, who has joined us as a guest. And we've already welcomed Julie. So you are welcome to come on camera or not. And you're welcome to come be part of table topics as you choose. We'll get to that in a minute. So thank you, Janet. Back to Janet.
And at our meeting, we have a general evaluator, and that person leads the evaluation portion of the meeting. And that's when the grammarian will give a report and the timer will give a report. And the general evaluator will give an overall evaluation on the meeting. And then I will make some comments and then turn the meeting back over to our President Joy. So welcome everyone to our haiku theme meeting. And now I will introduce our presenter, P.Neihoff. She is a local haiku expert. She's studied haiku for over 40 years. She gave me a little email I just got this morning about she used to be the owner of a computer communications company, a math and computer science student, and now she's a haiku teacher. She came across haikus in the 70s. Her Oriental art survey professor explained them to her, and she's been working on them on and off ever since. She is a member of the Mercantile Library down in Cincinnati, and she said they stopped trying to keep her out. She loves the library, and her son Peter is going to be the president of the library next year. He loves the library also. So please welcome our haiku expert P.Neihoff in her presentation.
Well, thank you, everybody. I'm glad to be here. If we're define here as a place where only one person is, it's hard to define here as a Zoom call, but I do have, let me get my PowerPoint going, and there. I do have a few slides put together like I do on Thursdays. So here we go. Let's see. There we go. There we go. Haiku for Toastmasters.
Okay, thank you.
There. And usually we're the Peregrine Haiku Society, so I have a large random picture of a peregrine falcon on there. And well, we're not peregrines today, so no bird. I guess it's hard to define a haiku. Our great poet A.E. Housman is active mostly in the first half of the 20th century, said, "I could no more define poetry than a terrier can define a rat," which is oddly apropos, but it's hard to say why unless you've tried to wrestle with getting a proper poem out. It's a haiku. This is Michael Dillon Welch, and Janet probably met him in the summer of 2023. He was sort of the MC of the event. His definition is haiku in English is typically a three-line poem that uses concrete sensory images to convey or imply natural and human seasonal phenomena using a two-part juxtapositional structure, as well as simple and primarily objective language. That's about the shortest useful definition I could find. The bolding of the two-part juxtapositional structure, that's my own and not Michael's. The two-part structure we usually refer to as a fragment and a phrase. Get many more elements into a small haiku and it sort of explodes and becomes a mess on the carpet. There's a sort of energy, if you get the fragment and the phrase right, an energy that comes between them, like striking steel against flint. You get a spark. And I added a picture there. That's not a picture of Michael. That's a portrait of the great poet Basho, whose poem we now see. This is Basho's most famous poem, probably the most famous one in all of haiku. An old pond, a frog jumped in, kerplunk. I have seen many, many pages of English translations of the same haiku, but this one is by Allen Ginsberg, the great beat poet, and he has a sort of directness that not a lot of poets have in their translation. The line that he translates as kerplunk is literally means the sound of water, mizu no oto. And usually people translate it as splash. Kerplunk is good. It's a sort of three-part structure. The old pond, a frog jumped in. You can use that as the phrase in the definition we just gave. And then kerplunk would be the fragment. Here you have, with the word kerplunk or splash, you have Basho bringing the image of the old pond, the frog, and you, the reader, together over a period of 400 years. You are all of a sudden there in the same place with a splash. And this really revolutionized the haiku poetry, which he sort of invented. A haiku was originally the starting verse of a longer group-oriented poem called a renga that people worked on together, usually at a party. And Basho had become very popular as the person to invite to give the honorary, first verse. And then other people would join in. He was invited to many parties, always given a small consideration for his visits. And sometimes he would give additional verses. It depended on how the party and the amount of sake left in the jug went. And so these started out as very social poems, bringing people together. And that's what I always liked about them. First of all, they're short. You do not have room, as in so many poems I see printed in even great magazines like Poetry, for nonsense. It seems so many contemporary poets are unable to do things without they make pretty pictures with words. They try to use odd linguistic structures, and I can usually go on about that, but I tend to start using words that are very, very inappropriate for Toastmasters. And I get frustrated, but you do not have room for nonsense in haiku. They're too short. You have to say what you mean. Another of the four great Japanese haiku poets is Busan. He lived after Basho in the middle part of the 1700s. He was born around 1720 and died around 1780, so he fits like right in the middle of the century. The rainy season, a paper lantern in hand, I walk along the veranda. The rainy season, a paper lantern in hand, I walk along the veranda. We have the fragment is the first line. It can be either the first or the last. If it comes in the middle, it just mixes everything up. So we have the first, we have the fragment and then the phrase. So the fragment, the rain, it's raining out, but you still have your paper lantern walking under the protected roof of your porch. And the idea of the paper lantern lit by a candle contrasted with the rain, that really brings out the best in both images. The third great haiku poet is a man called Issa. He was more of a contemporary of Wordsworth and Coleridge, early 1800s. Don't go, don't go. All their calls are lies. First firefly. It's Issa. He has a very innocent outlook on life, almost childlike. He talks to animals in many of his poems. And you get the idea that he's actually waiting in some of his poems for them to answer back. Here he loves the fireflies at night so much, he doesn't want them to leave as dawn comes. He wants the fireflies to say, so he's trying to talk to them. Stay. Our fourth great haiku writer, our fourth and last, is Shiki, who wrote at the end of the 1800s and the beginning of the 1900s, Cherry Blossoms. Being ill, how many things I remember about them. Cherry blossoms. Being ill, how many things I remember about them. We usually recite the haiku twice because they're so fast. Reciting them is so fast, it's almost like watching a bug hit the windshield of your car. Almost barely time to say, what the heck is it? But he was sick. He had tuberculosis most of his adult life. So he can't go out and see the blossoms. He can only sit and remember them from the times he's seen them. This is Kyoshi, who is Shiki's best student and sort of chosen successor, waiting for the autumn wind at its long route, saxifrage. Waiting for the autumn wind at its long route, saxifrage. He lived a long time. He died around 1963 or so. He was in charge of marshaling the Japanese haiku poets to write patriotic things during the war, and those poems are about as interesting as Soviet art. One last one, and then spoken love. I envy the oriole that sings, that sings. It's so musical, I had to get that in there towards the end. And the very last one, moving into the sun, the pony takes with him some mountain shadow. So you've got the fragment there with sun and the phrase with shadow. And that's the poet we just had. Perhaps nothing is absolute in haiku. Like life, haiku require learning, experience, and balance. So that if you need to break a rule, you have permission. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Patty. That was great. Um, I thought that I would share just a couple my attempts at haiku that I made. When I went to the conference last year, they had at one of the workshops a picture of a crow. We'll see if I can get it. Okay, finally got it's on my a picture of a crow in a park with a steak knife in its beak. And we were supposed to write a haiku or poem with that. I worked on it after I got home some more, and I came up with observe banded black crow's stance as he balances dirt-covered serrated steak knife in his long, shiny, and smooth black beak. Much is at stake. Help or hurt your environment. What are you balancing? What stance will you take? Look. Okay, that was kind of a long one. And then a shorter one around my husband's my wedding anniversary. I came up with moving memories of wedding anniversary at each other's side still. Okay, and I've written some. I wrote one for my harp recital. It's on my LinkedIn page. And there's a couple of haikus I put on my LinkedIn page, and won't take time to try to find those right now. But anyway, when you write haikus, you just it helps you get centered and peaceful. And some people think that writing haikus is a writing haiku, it's singular, is a way of reducing stress in your life. Okay, now we wanted to give everyone a chance to write a haiku. So I guess first, if anyone has any questions, I'm sure our presenter would try to answer them. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to raise your hand or whatever.
Yeah, I have a question. So haiku, I was kind of under the impression, by the way, I thought it was amazing, your speech. I can
Thank you.
really see, I'm hooked, I guess. One thing, I mean, I just thought it was the structure. I was always more focused on that, but it seems like there's a nature component to it. I mean, I know you said there are no rules or the rules can be broken, but is that a fundamental part of haiku, is that there's some nature element to it?
Well, that's what we were taught when we were all in fifth grade, and our teachers taught us this new form. But actually, the 17 syllables is the idea of it shows the great differences that there are between the English and Japanese languages. I'm surprised that the two languages are spoken by people on the same planet. They do not have syllables the way we have. If we were to tell them Shakespeare wrote much of his plays in iambic pentameter, they would not know what we were talking about. They, their idea of what we translate as syllables, they use the term onji, and they distinguish the separations only in change of sound, not rhythm. They don't have rhythm. For instance, the word haiku in Japanese is considered to have three onji, ha, I, ku, and not two syllables, the way we have it. So the divisions we use are kind of meaningless when it comes to the Japanese languages. And it's more sort of a respect for each language that we use what works best for us. For instance, the iambic pentameter that Shakespeare uses, he uses because it fits the language. It's what an actor on stage can easily deliver in a single breath, just as the 17 onji are what a Japanese poet can deliver in a single breath. So each, even though they're vastly different, they serve the needs of their respective languages.
And I just want to follow up again. So
Mhm.
is there like a nature component, and as far as the
Yes,
content?
they
Okay.
will insist on that. Many haiku instructors in Japan will not even talk to you if you don't put a nature image
Okay.
in your poem.
Okay.
So also, it turns out an additional thing to what I was discussing before in the syllables, it turns out that the English language is way more efficient in transmitting information than Japanese is. If you see, like with Basho's frog poem in the beginning, if you look at a lot of English translations of a given famous poem, the most satisfactory ones will be around an average of, say, 12 syllables.
Hmm.
Because Alan knew the rules as well as anybody, and that's not 17 syllables by anybody's count. So I guess we're just, for instance, the word he translates as splash, it's Mizu no Oto. That's 5 onji. And we just have no use for something that long to convey the image of the sound of a frog going into the water.
Mm.
Anybody else?
Let's see the North American haiku. Um, I've heard at some of the workshops that you say you can break any rule.
I once saw an article that went through all of the major haiku rules and showed where Issa broke every single one of them, but he's still a great poet. So the spirit of the poem is more important than the straitjacket we sometimes want to put language in.
Mm.
All right. At the workshops on the first Thursdays of the month, Hetty usually has, or the group would come up with a theme to help us focus our thoughts and write.
Mhm.
I don't know, it's Thanksgiving is coming up. I don't know if that's an okay theme for people
Uh-huh.
to put
Well,
together.
I also like the word of the day, shigure. That's excellent.
Okay.
I may have had ideas before that, but they're all gone.
Okay, we'll use the Sugar Ray as our theme, and we'll give Betsy, our timer. Can you put 5 minutes on your timer to give us have time to think about our and write our haiku? All right, thank you. Oh,
Oh, we're writing our haiku now.
yes, all right. are we doing with time, Betsy?
Time's up, I guess.
What's up? Okay, thanks. All right, we'll take volunteers. Would anyone like to share their cigarette haiku?
I can go.
All right.
A cold sugar ray. The little dog picks a spot to get back in the house.
Thank you.
I'll go. I'm sorry, I was writing Betsy's down because I might ask permission to put it on Facebook. Yeah, that's
Oh, also,
fantastic.
if you want, if people want, it's also a good idea to put them in chat if you want to transmit them that way.
Yeah, thank you. I guess we do have it recorded, so yeah, I'll do mine, and then I see David has his hand up. Dead leaves and flowers, snow blankets the lawn and trees. Life begins underneath.
Thank you.
I wrote several, so I'm trying to decide which one to read. I wrote three. So I'll write the first one. I'll read the first one. River Valley Snow. First snowfall blankets us white. Beauty covers earth.
Thank you. Oh, and if people want to read their haiku twice, they can.
I think I see David's hand up.
David?
Yes, thank you. So I'll just read my haiku. The ripples flow outward. The duck swims on the pond. It is very quiet.
Wow.
Thank you. Okay, I'll go ahead and share mine. Late fall, winter, wood chips shielding my banana plants from sugar ray. Late fall, winter, wood chips shielding my banana plants from sugar ray. Let's see, any of our guests? Let's see. I think Julie or Deborah. Okay, so
Well, how'd we do, Patty? I think
I think you're really on your way.
I thought so too.
So I
right.
like it's easy to understand once you see it and easy to get into. I don't like the idea of people coming to my class first time wondering, can I really be creative? Am I allowed? Of course you're allowed. And this gets you into it and bam, you're there. No more arguing.
Thank you. Okay, so anyway, we'll get our, oh, I do want to say some of our guests want you to stay on
Mhm.
Zoom because they might have some more questions after
Sure.
okay, thanks. So yeah, so whoever's in charge of our Zoom, don't close it when we stop the recording. Just keep us on for a while. Okay. So next on our agenda, we have table topics. Joy, did you want to share some of your table topic questions?
Okay, we'll have time for a few off the cuff responses, which is part of being a good speaker. It not only preparing a presentation, which all of us do, but speaking off the cuff is important in our personal life as well as our business lives. So I'm going to ask a question today, and it's the same question. I'll just ask a couple of people. The question is, how do you spark your creativity? How do you fuel your imagination? So I'd like you to answer the question either how you used to fuel your imagination, how you do now, or maybe how you would like to fuel your imagination and spark your creativity in the future. So, Betsy, are you prepared to answer that question?
Sure. Can you repeat it?
How do you spark your creativity or fuel your imagination, past, present, or future?
Well, to fuel my creativity, I try to think of past events because usually I need creativity when I'm trying to write a speech, especially on a certain topic or just a, a family event or something like that. So it's pretty tricky, but I just try to think about things that are happening and what could that make a good story. And then I start putting ideas down. It might be kind of a short idea, but maybe I can connect a couple ideas and make a story. So that's just the thought process, writing ideas. Some people say they have a little notebook they carry with them. Whenever they have an idea, they just write it down, and then they may draw on it later on. And back to you.
Let's see, you're on mute, Joey.
How do you fuel your creativity or how do you spark your imagination? It's the same question. You can refer to it in the past, what you do now, or what you might like to do to spark your creativity. David, are you prepared to answer that question?
Thank you, Joy. Yes, creativity is a tricky thing for me because there's a trade-off in that the thing that makes me most creative is if I do allow some time for creativity. And I don't actually do all that many creative things. I do, I try a little bit of writing, that sort of thing. But I find that if I'm working really long hours in anything, that is a real killer for creativity because I tend to get in somewhat utilitarian mode. So if I'm working long hours, it doesn't matter what I'm doing the long hours at. I have some kind of goal. I have a certain number of tasks that I need to do, and if I need to put in 16 or 18 hours in a day, I can do that, but it's going to be I'm going to be executing on a fairly defined plan if I'm doing that, and it's not going to be especially creative. So for me to be creative, I do need to be a little bit more in control of my time, and I can't be working really long hours at one thing. So the trade-off there is that I do sometimes come off, I believe, as a little bit on the lazy side of things. It's not really my intent. It's really the opposite. But I can come across as being a little bit lazy because to be creative, I do need to be, I do need to have some downtime, basically. I need, my creative brain needs to be refreshed regularly. And if it's working really long hours, yeah, I can get the stuff done, but it's going to be just a well executed plan. There's going to be no creativity. So basically, I would say that's the key that I've kind of come to with this short table topic speech. Creativity for me requires significant downtime. Back to you, Madam Table Topics Master.
Thank you. Thank you, David. We're learning a little bit about each other with this question. So I'd like to ask Jeff Jeff, are you prepared to tell us what sparks your creativity muscle and your imagination?
Yeah, I like this table topics because it's the same table topic question for everybody, so it makes it easy. Especially if you're the third person in line. But I think for me, there's this myth. I've heard it in my entire life, and I've been involved in computer technology my entire career, and that is that you're in the shower or something, and suddenly this brilliant idea pops into your head, or you're in a deep sleep and you wake up in the middle of the night and you've solved the problem. There's this creative spark that just bursts on into your brain, and you figure out, the problem that you've been working on for months. But I think the reality, at least for me, it never works that way. It's always a collaboration. My ideas never come from within my brain alone. They're always sparked by somebody else. And a lot of times I found it could be somebody says something really unusual or that doesn't make sense. Maybe it's in a meeting. They speak up and they tell you, they say some ridiculous idea, and everybody just poo-poos it, including myself. And then that's when I go home, I'm in the shower and I'm like, wait a second, that actually made sense. So I think for that reason, you never in a meeting, if you're in a work meeting, whatever, no idea. The worst thing you can do is not speak up. Even if it's a bad idea, it can spark somebody else's creativity. That's my answer. Back to you, Madam Table Topics Master.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you. We have time for a couple more. So if Deborah or Julie would like to speak, even without coming on camera, you could raise your virtual hand with the raise hand motion that you see at the bottom of the screen. And if you don't want to participate, that's totally fine. But since we have a little bit of time, Patty, would you like to participate in our table topic today to talk about what fuels your imagination?
Oh, sure. Yeah. One thing I've realized is that haiku is the poetry of noticing. It's not so much taking extra time, but simply noticing, for instance, what your walk from your usual parking lot to the haiku meeting place, why is that different than it was last month? Even though it's the same route, is the weather a little different? The people, the car you parked next to, maybe you walked by a man who was talking to himself on the corner. Something is different. And just taking the time to notice what that might have been. It doesn't actually really take much more physical time, just a kind of taking off the blinders.
I love that. I love that. Thank you, Patty. Thank you. All right. Let's see. I'm going to say we could wrap it up with the table topics. I personally like to color. I have many sets of markers and I just color. And even when I do journaling, sometimes I want to write with an orange pen, sometimes purple. And I fuel my creativity in that way. So if there's anyone else, we'll make some time. But if not, I'm going to put it back to not the general evaluator, to the Toastmaster for the day, Janet Castellan. Thank you, Janet.
Great. Thank you, Joy. Very good. Now, next on the agenda, we have our general evaluator. Our general evaluator is Jeff.
Yes, thank you. And just to tell a little bit about what a general evaluator is, at every Toastmaster meeting, we evaluate every portion of the meeting just to give ourselves some feedback. And so normally we would evaluate the speaker. In this case, the speaker's a guest, so we won't, I may have a few comments, but we would assign a specific evaluator, but we don't have that today. But we do evaluate other portions of the meeting, language. Sometimes we have a filler word counter, we have a timer. So I'm going to introduce those roles. And we'll start with the timer, who is Betsy Irvin.
Hi. So Peggy's presentation was 12 minutes and 17 seconds, and just a little over. And my table topic was about 1 minute 10. David was about 1 minute 33. Jeff was about 1 minute 17. And Peggy was about 1 minute 05.
Oh, great. Back to me.
Or Patty, I said. I meant.
Fantastic. And our next role is a word counter, out counter grammarian. That is David Ash.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. Yes, I'm doing the report on things like ahs and ums and positive word usage. I did not use myself the word of the day, trigger. The reason was that I was expecting to look out and see trigger, but instead I saw a duck swimming by on the pond. So that became my haiku. We aren't evaluating your speech, Patty, but I will notice that you did use the word of the day, so I appreciate that. Betsy, in her haiku, also used the word of the day, and the only really comment that I have is in Jeff's table topics. Bit of a cough in my throat. Jeff did have, I think, one double clutch and use as a filler word a couple of times. But apart from that, I really don't have a lot of criticism. So, but again, I'm really just evaluating table topics. So it's kind of a smaller role for me today than the word counter usually would have. So thank you, and back to you, Mr. General Evaluator.
Great. Thank you, David. I always find when I'm the word of the day person, I give the word of the day, I never use it. In your case, you had an excuse, but but we do that. It throws people off a little bit. It's meant to mix things up and to try to incorporate, not only to learn a new word, but to try to incorporate it in your speaking on the fly. So it's just another challenge that we always throw in there. So that was a great word of the day, by the way. So I just have a few comments. Patty, wonderful.
Thank you.
Haiku is beauty and meaning. I learned awesome prose. I think I wrote that in the form of haiku. So, but seriously, thank you. I also wanted to shout out again to our guests, Julie and Deborah. We'll have time for them at the end of the meeting to share any comments they want. Please put your haiku in the chat, Joy and whoever else hasn't done that. Because we are recording, that also records the chat, and I would love to have a copy of those. Normally, again, we wouldn't evaluate a guest speaker, but I do have a couple comments. I can't resist, Patty. I loved you used so many different elements of speech, and you did it so well. Obviously, you're a professional. You do this on a regular basis. You have your classes down at the Mercantile Library. But one was the fragment and phrase. When you first introduced that, you used the metaphor steel against flint. And it's like immediately that really made sense as to what that was. Used a lot of humor. One of the things you said was, these are words I can't use in a Toastmaster meeting. You had incorporated some other humor. The thing that really hit home for me is that you said haiku is saying what you mean. That really does resonate, I think, with what we try to do in Toastmasters. We try to speak concisely, get to the point. There was actually a project in our learning management system called Get to the Point. So haiku is all about, it's almost a challenge of being able to condense meaning into something, the smallest possible atomic element of a poem. That's what it appears to be to me. So I think that's really cool, and that's something we try to do in our speech as well. Cut out all the irrelevant stuff and just get to the point. You gave plenty of examples. The other thing you mentioned was the observation part of haiku. It's really about observing. I love that as well. The last thing I picked up, just by virtue of the slides, haiku really lends itself to being superimposed on an image. Obviously, it has nature, but more so than any other poetry, I think it really works well. I can see why there's so many Facebook pages and Instagram pages that are devoted to haiku. Table topics. Thank you, Joy, for the table topics. That was really cool. Table topics sparking your creativity certainly fits with the theme. And then the last thing is I learned a lot about haiku today, but I'm not going to quit my day job. And I wish that maybe we could do presidential debates in the haiku form. Wouldn't that be amazing?
Yes.
I will turn it back to the Toastmaster.
Great. Thank you, Jeff, for your evaluation portion of the meeting and the good things about the speaker's speech. And I'm glad everything worked out. I'm thankful for people that sign up for roles for the meeting and our VP of Ed who put together the meeting. Thank you for that. And I'm not feeling that well today, but I'm glad I made it. So anyway, I'll turn control back to our president, Joy.
Thank you, Janet. Thank you. I think this is one of the most fun Toastmaster meetings we've had in a while being educational. We have a lot of educational meetings, but this was a lot of fun and we learned a little bit about each other. I think writing a haiku stimulated my creativity. You know, I just feel even more creative now listening to the haikus that we wrote. Yeah, and knowing that we all participated in something that might not come natural to us. You know, that was a lot of fun. So what we do here at Cincinnati TV Toastmasters is we wrap up on time and we will turn the recording off, but we'll still stay on in case that we would like to